As a leader, do you want to make your company move from good to great, as in the title of Jim Collins' classic business book? If so, watch this episode. Okay, so first of all, I should start with that this is actually the second of Vision and the fourth in this series based on Jim Collins' update of the book that he co-wrote with Bill Lazier. I don't know how many years ago, probably 20 or more. But it's been updated, and much of the book is Jim's view from 2020, which is the updated portion of the text. So as I said, there's actually going to be, I guess it'd be right here, there'll be 114, Crush It Club 114, 115, 116, and now 117. This is the second of the vision portion. And this is super important because this is foundational. And in Jim Collins' own words, while he can't ironclad prove causality as virtually every social science, and I would argue most branches of science cannot, he can offer compelling proof of correlation between companies who behave in certain ways and the historical outcomes that we know they have achieved. So that's really the best you can do, because you can't say, okay, well, let's behave this way and not behave this way and test it. You can't have that within company control. You can only compare, as Jim has very insightfully, better than anyone else, I think is the only one I've ever seen use this in business, is to compare two of the most comparable companies over the same period of time and examine the difference between what the successful companies did and what the unsuccessful companies did. Causation or not, it's compelling correlational evidence, and I'm going to bet on doing what the big companies, the most successful companies did. And this is the main thing is people go, well, yeah, well, I'm not Pepsi, I'm not Merck, I'm not IBM. How can I worry about fluffy things like vision? His argument is really simple. He says many of the companies that he has become famous for documenting their rise to success, he documented them or went back historically and looked at their beginnings. And his argument is most of the great companies of basically any century, in fact, he talks about the United States and the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence as statements of vision which are analogous, and that is one of the primary things that has caused the US to succeed better in many ways than any other nation. And believe me, that's painful to say as a Canadian, but it's true. The US is unique in history in that they said, here's what we want our country to be, and they documented it. So that's an example of vision. And all the companies that he talks about in his great side of his matched pair comparisons, every single one of them either had some kind of vision from their inception, or while they were small, they created a vision. So what this means is, for me and for you as organizational leaders, is do it now. I don't mean tomorrow, I mean do it now. Start now. If you can't start now because you're driving, stop and do it then. Because this is the kind of thing that companies who did it in the beginning are now great. So worst case scenario, will give you some very articulate ways to talk about your company. Best case scenario, they are fundamental in the causation of greatness in your company. And greatness is defined as whatever you mean it is. I'm going to give some examples of my work in progress of the three parts. And the three parts are the core values and beliefs, the mission, and the purpose. So those are the three parts. Now, he talks about how many companies get these confused, or many different books and organizations and consultancies use these terms differently. And that's true. So we're going with the definitions of Jim Collins' definitions of these terms. So the first one is core values and beliefs. He talks about this like the analogous to the DNA of a human. My eyes are blue because that's in my genes. I am only 5.5 feet tall because that's in my genes. There's really nothing I can do about that. Even when I'm not thinking about it, my height, my hair color, many of the things about who I am was determined before I was born. Now there's something called epigenetics, which allows us to turn on and off gene expression. So it's not entirely fate, but there's lots of things that are like genes, and core beliefs and values are. So he says, this should be the values that the leader or leaders hold authentically for themselves. So it isn't like, so what cool values should we say so it looks good for PR? It's like, what do you believe at your core as the founder, the executive director, the CEO? Those are the kind of things that should go into the core beliefs. So here are mine as they stand. And I wrote these specifically for this episode, but also because I've been struggling to articulate well what I do and why people need it now for almost 2 years. So here goes. So of my core beliefs is to hold ourselves, because this will eventually be more than me, our methods accountable as we teach our students to be themselves, to their loved ones, and their ikigai and their cause. That's a fancy way of me saying, I want the principles that I teach, the principles that my companies teach, to be as accountable as I expect to hold people when they want to succeed. It's like, do you really want to lose that weight? Do you really want to get into that market? Well, here's the steps you need to take. And you need to take them, not for me because I'm helping you with it, but for you because that's what matters and that's your cause. Okay, now 2, and I said these are my values, to relentlessly test and improve the validity of our methods and modify, replace, or discard any of them in favor of those that are empirically proven to be better. That is, I don't care who it is. If somebody comes and says, Tim, you have this method and it works okay, I know a better method would be like, tell me more, but I'm going to want to see proof, because everything I do is based on proof. It's not based on assumption and gut with unfounded evidence, okay? It's not the only way to do it, but it's the way I want to do it. This is my baby. Now, the 3rd of my core values is to be transparent, honest, and ethical in all our dealings with all our stakeholders. That means my staff as they come to exist, the people we are teaching, the companies we are doing this with, honesty, ethical, and transparent. I honestly find it despicable, to be very frank, how many companies say this but don't do it. And to me, it is despicable. So I don't want to have that in my company. So those are my core values and beliefs. Now we're on to the mission. So the mission is essentially usually has a 10 to 25 year frame, a time frame. As a goal, it's, or you could also call your mission your BHAG, the term invented by Jim Collins, the big, hairy, audacious goal. And a mission should be a clear, compelling overall goal that serves as a focal point for effort. It needs to be attainable, unlike purpose. So mine is to become the international gold standard for scientific success education against which all others are compared by December 31st, 2032. So that's just over 10 years from today, 10 and a half years, a little more than that, 10 years, 8 months, 10 years, 7 months. Okay, and finally, because we're already down to the end of this, this is why I wanted to do this, and this is purpose. Purpose is the compass, the guiding star, and the ultimate but never attainable. This is the trajectory of your company. Why do you exist beyond money? And the statement should be broad and inspiring and endure for at least 100 years. And so here is one of mine. I only have enough time to read one of the 3 I'm working on. That is, for my vision is to be the best scientific, to make the best scientific success principles available to anyone on earth who aspires to continuously strive to become the best versions of themselves. And by doing so, by extension, create a better, happier, and more sustainable world for everyone whose lives they touch. I'm already at my time. but I'm just going to say one last thing, and that is, if any of this was of value to you, I'm going to say two things. If any of this was of value to you, please share, like, subscribe, and more to the point, I implore you to take these actions yourself. RFN, right fucking now. I don't care where you are, unless you have these in place in your company, these will do nothing but serve you, if only to give you directional frames. That's it for Crush It Club, episode 117, Vision Part 2 from Beyond Entrepreneurship, book review, deeper dive. My name is Tim B. Green. Bye for now.